Hey everyone, this is Hero, bringing you my Soul Level 6 New Game Plus 2, no damage, pure melee, whatever, playthrough of Demon Souls. Right now we're exactly where we left off in the last video. We're in 2-2 instead of 2-1 now, just after having killed the armor spider. We're activating hyper mode with one of the pickaxe enemies, and we're putting on the cat's ring. And the cat's ring is amazing because this means that all the drops down to get to the FLAMELURKER or get to Scirvir, which is where we're going currently, don't cost you any life at all. Because this ring, as I've mentioned in the last playthrough, is what you get from saving Riddell in the Tower of Latria, and I did that in my first playthrough, thankfully. And this is basically full control, the spell from Dark Souls, except in ring form, so you take no damage from falls as long as you can survive the fall itself. Now, I like to wear the Grave Robber's ring in order to sneak up on Scirvir, because Scirvir's a dick. Scirvir's a really, really, really big dick. And he's annoying as hell, because Scirvir, I'm going to be really, really honest here, Scirvir took me fucking longer than FLAMELURKER did. This one Black Phantom NPC took me longer than one of the most hated and hardest, in many people's opinions, bosses in the game. And it's just because he's such a dick. Always spamming his pyromancies that are way too fast, by the way, as if everybody in the world hasn't already complained about that. He's got some curious hyper armor on some of his attacks, and that combustion spell has hyper armor as well, so you can't just attack him to get rid of it. And sometimes his spells have some curious lingering hitbox frames, because sometimes you can be hit by it and you think, well, fair enough because I rolled right into it, but then other times you can just walk right through it and never get hit by it, and then sometimes you can wait for it to dissipate and then walk back through where it was and you find yourself dying to a couple of embers, so it's not really that consistent. God, he's a dickhead. I got him down to about a third of life then. I don't know what it is about this guy. I just get stuck every time we fight. Watch this. What kind of bullshit was that? Fucking magic name, Scirvir, hacking the PS3. God. Doesn't he have an... I thought NPCs in this game had, like magic bars so that they couldn't just do what he just did. And, yeah, so I like to wear the Grave Robber's ring first to just run in with the S-Dock with the Morion blade and Clever Rat's ring activated so I can get a nice 1400 point backstab. And what I'm looking for him to do is to do the heavy magic spell, the really big one like that, the big fireball, and then run in and hit him 3 times with the S-Dock, because hitting him 3 times with the S-Dock with all this hyper mode stuff activated means I do about 550 damage to him, which is not a huge chunk of life, but it is pretty much a 1/3 of a backstab, which is what you want to be going for. Now, thankfully for this encounter, he's decided to head over towards this edge here, so I thought I'd try and be cheeky and hit him with the Storm Ruler, see if I could knock him somewhere, and just run over and hit him with the S-Dock, because that's a good free 500 points as well. Now, Storm Ruler is really hard with this guy as well, because, well, as you can see, he's just staying back and using his magic a lot, but sometimes you get lucky. Right there. He drops a Talisman of Beasts, if anyone's curious, or if anyone doesn't know. The Talisman of Beasts I think you can only get from killing Black Phantom Scirvir, and it's a talisman that lets you cast miracles and sorceries with just the one piece of equipment, so you don't need a catalyst and the talisman as well. And I think there's only 2 talismans in the entire game, and I think there's only 2 catalysts as well. So I think there's the silver catalyst and the wooden catalyst, and there's also the Then there's the Talisman of God and the Talisman of Beasts. So I think that's right. I'm not entirely sure. Like I say a lot, I'm not a Demon Souls guru, so I do not know absolutely everything about this game. I actually don't know quite a lot. So here we are at FLAMELURKER. This guy, I'm not sure exactly how many deaths I had against him, but it only took me about 2 hours to kill him, which I was kind of happy with. Not super duper happy, but like, you know, it's not as bad as it could have been, really. I've heard some people get stuck on this guy for a few hours at least, so it was nice to be able to just get rid of him like this. Now watch here as I die to both shoddy camera work on my part and bad positioning on my part and some iffy range on that explosion. So, you know, it's 2/3 my fault and, you know, 1/3 the game designer's fault for making that explosion have a little more range than it looks like. But, you know, good on them for making some of the other explosions not have as much range as they look like when you can just run right back into them. That's kind of how that's how I die in this fight. Just I underestimate like range and I don't handle my camera properly, but I also kind of just ignore the fact that sometimes FLAMELURKER just has this crazy hyper armor that, like, I mean, that wasn't hyper armor there, I didn't actually hit him with the S-stock, so, you know, fair enough on that count. And the problem I have with this guy is just I don't control my camera right, and I can get sort of a little bit angry at myself for not doing that right. And one of the reasons I have a lot of trouble actually getting angry with this particular fight, the FLAMELURKER fight, is because it's fair. It is completely fair because you are faced against one opponent who has very set patterns. He has 3 distinct stages in his attacks, so he'll use certain attacks in certain stages, and you can always rely on him to, you know, to have these attacks in his pool if you have him down to particular stages of his life. And this is why I see a lot of people getting very, very angry whenever they fight FLAMELURKER, and this isn't to say all people, just a good percentage of people getting angry because FLAMELURKER is, to them, quite unfair. And I'd like to just put my 2 cents on this right now, because an unfair boss is not FLAMELURKER. FLAMELURKER is very fair. He is predictable. You can tell what stage he's in by how many jumps he does, also by what attacks he can do. You know, if you stick around long enough to learn the moveset, you know which attacks he will be able to hyper armor through. You know that perhaps with one of your 2-handed running attacks you might be able to stagger him like you can with the S-stock. These are very, very predictable and manageable things that make a boss very, very palatable. This is the reason why I find FLAMELURKER to be a very, very good boss, because he is fair. If you learn him, and if you just tackle it the right way, if you manage everything right, then you will eventually be able to take him down. Something that I find to be an unfair boss are the man-eaters. The man-eaters, for one reason, and in Dark Souls, Ornstein and Smough. Now, Ornstein and Smough for a bit of a lesser reason, something that can happen or can't happen, but man-eaters, I'll just say right now, man-eaters are just the worst kind of... Have you ever been fighting the man-eaters if you've played this game, and one of the man-eaters has just decided to fly up into the air and bug it off? He's just buggered off. He's not coming back, he's just staying up in the air shooting magic at you, and he waits out the timer until his buddy shows up. That is unfair, because it is hard enough managing one man-eater, let alone 2. That is an example of why it's unfair. And look at FLAMELURKER, by the way. Bloody guy. Look, that 2-handed running attack with the S-stock stunned him. And, by the way, FLAMELURKER just chasing you like this. If there was a FLAMELURKER, like, in America or in Australia, where obesity is a problem, we wouldn't have any fat kids if we had one of these chasing them all around the tracks all the time. They get their exercise. Jesus. He's just running, explosion, running, explosion, running, explosion. And I'm just, this entire time, I'm just waiting for him, Jesus fucking Christ, just do the jump, just do your jumping attack, because you can punish the jump attack, you can't punish these explosions. If you think that you can, he'll just use a different one. So there we go, there's a dead Flamelurker. And, you know, lovely, dead Flamelurker. Back to the unfair bosses discussion. The Maneaters, what pissed me off with them was that they could just decide to fly up into the air and stay there. And it was all dependent on them. You couldn't do anything about it if you wanted to, because they moved too fast to shoot an arrow at. You can't lock onto them to throw throwing daggers at. Their behaviour doesn't actually seem to change all that much if you do manage to hit them, which I did in my other playthrough. And they can just decide to fuck you in that boss. That's just it. That's just what they do. That's just what'll happen. And this bothers me because a boss fight should be a test of your skill, not a test of what the AI feels like it should be, what it wants to do that night, you know? Like, the boss is functionally invincible while it's up there, while it does that, and don't mind the fact that I just magically turned to soul form while I was walking through that fog gate, because I actually just ran in here and killed myself when I was in body form, so that I'd have the 20% boost to soul form and I'd be able to activate hyper mode while I was in the boss arena as well. But that's what annoys me about the Maneaters, because they are quite legitimate otherwise, because they are a legitimate challenge, because they have attacks and you need to learn them, and you need to know what you can and can't just dodge and run around and, you know, that kind of a thing, and that makes them kind of a good boss. But then they can just decide to fuck you like that. And Ornstein and Smo in Dark Souls have the same kind of a problem, because they do this. It is really, really dependent on their AI, because it's not even like the Maneaters, where if you get the right kind of AI, you can have a fair fight, because, you know, the other Maneater doesn't show up basically until you've just killed the first one. With Ornstein and Smo, there's always two bosses there, and when you're getting two, you know, AI-controlled computers basically to decide how they're going to fight this one player, odds are that you are not going to get a consistent reaction from fight to fight, so it can feel extremely, extremely luck-based. And I think most people, mind you, will agree with me that the Ornstein and Smo fight is at least 50% chance, you know, dependent on their AI. And, you know, this is true with many, many bosses in many, many games, but it makes the Ornstein and Smo fight harder and less appealing than it has to be, because unless you get very, very good at trying to control their AI, because I know that if you get close to Smo, then he has a tendency to jump back, but this is like one of 5 different things that he can do when you get close to him, and it's all about being lucky and being lucky enough to get close to Smo so that he jumps back a few times so that you can take care of Ornstein by himself. So yeah, that's my rant on fair and unfair bosses, because otherwise I think Ornstein and Smo are a very fair boss fight. I wish they were more legitimately challenging like Flamelurker than they are currently. And, you know, I'm talking about real bosses here, because the Dragon God is not a real boss. Dragon Boss, fucking hell. The Dragon God, thank you tongue for cooperating. The Dragon God is the bed of chaos with less bullshit, and I said the same thing in my last guide run, and I'm going to say the same thing now, because it's extremely easy. All you have to do is attack pieces of the scenery and just move from pillar to pillar to pillar, activating the crossbows, and then all you do is run in and hit him on his chin spike, which apparently is a critical point and you cause extra damage to it. I didn't even know. A user, YouTube commenter named BlueB898, who is also as I've been led to believe, a talented Demon Souls PvE player and Dark Souls PvE player, but also a pretty talented Dark Souls PvP player, so that's a good mix he's got going right there. And he's let me know in my last video of the Dragon God that the chin spike is actually a critical point for some reason. I don't know why the chin spike would be a critical point, but apparently it is. But actually, if I were to compare FLAMELURKER, if I were to make like a FLAMELURKER analog in Dark Souls, I think I'd either choose Artorias or Manus. And it's amazing that they're both from the DLC, because the DLC actually had very, very good bosses, which I was so happy for, because there's the bosses, the good bosses that Dark Souls have are pretty much limited to the Four Kings, Ornstein and Smo to a degree. I have my problems with them, but yeah, Artorias and Manus. I think those are the most skill-based, predictable, and fair bosses in the game. And some people might disagree with me on that, but I just love the fact that you have these bosses available to you now. And I mean, they're not strictly as challenging as FLAMELURKER is in this game. Like, you don't get the same sort of really tense, being super scared of getting close to all these explosions type thing. But Manus gives you like sort of a similar sort of feeling, and so does Artorias, because he can be really aggressive sometimes, and that's fantastic, but it's being really aggressive in this predictable sort of manner, because he still has these attacks in his pool for these standard phases of his fight that you can punish. And being able to punish a boss is probably, I think, what makes them actually quite fair. And I've talked a bit over the Dragon God boss fight, but really, who gives a fuck? It's Dragon God. That's all. I can't even carry the pure Dragon Stone. Don't care. I've already got my +5 fight dragon weapon. Anyway, that was Dragon God and FLAMELURKER and Black Phantom Scirvir, so that's a whole load off. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.